And today we're going to be having Mr. Adams, and we'll be speaking on improving the orientation and perspective young people have towards leadership, especially in West Africa. And one of the reasons why we have him speaking for this topic is because he's from Ghana, and it's been in the system. Like, if you've probably been in the system in Africa, it's similar. So we're having him speak on the orientation and perspective young people have towards leadership. And we'll be speaking very soon. We'll be joining us shortly. Thanks so much for joining us. Okay, so our guest will be joining us in a few minutes. Okay, let's get started. Okay, let's get set. Okay, so he's been in a school in Ghana that is very popularly known. It's popularly known as more like Isabor School, and he understands the system. So I believe he's been in it in and out of the school system. So I believe it's very important for him to just share his experience on improving the orientation and perspective young people have on leadership. Okay, he just joined us right now. So we're going to have him right away, and then we're going to begin. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's go. Okay. Okay. So, Arlington, I hope we're not going to have progress in this today. Okay, so we're waiting for us, our guest to join us now, and then we'll go to begin right away. Okay. So just waiting for him to join. Okay, join us now. Okay. I'm saying, let me try and send another invite. Okay. Thanks for joining us. Okay. Okay, so we're waiting for our guest, and we're going to begin right away. I think we're having a further with the network. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us. And the topic is improving the orientation and perspective young people have about afterwards leadership. Okay. Yes. The sit and sing. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Let's get it. Okay. Thanks for joining us. We're waiting for our guests, then we're going to begin right away. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. Thanks for once for joining. Thanks so much to Mr. Bolaji and to my friend Ashanti. Okay, so we're waiting for our guests, and then I think having a problem with network. So sure. Okay. Let's see. Let's see it. Okay, so I think this is joining us now. Okay, fair. Okay, so I'm setting my e-bike. It's joining us now. Okay. Okay. Yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. So sorry for the delay. We're waiting for our guest joining us, and then we're going to begin. Okay, this is from Nigeria. Okay, so sorry about the delay. We're really sorry about the delay. Okay, I guess he's unable to join. I've gone tried sending him another invite to see how be able to join. Okay. Uh, so sorry about the delay. Okay. Okay. Listen. Yeah. Hey, ref. Me. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Oh, good. I was good. I was here. That's all right. That's all right.
Okay, so without wasting too much of our time, we're going to go straight to the section. So I went through Mr. Adam's profile and I said, oh, wow, this is really nice. And it's very important to have something like that to speak to us. And he went to a school that's very popular. So I think it's very important to actually have him here. So he was speaking on improving the rotation of perspective young people in Africa have towards leadership. Okay, Mr. Adams, the floor is yourself.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yo, I'm getting feedback. I don't know if it's coming from me or it's coming from your end. Oh, because of the airport.
I I I feel so because sometimes you have
I lost you.
sometimes I feel that way, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
All right, so let me try taking them off and let's see. Off and we'll see. All right, good. Good. Very good evening to very good evening to you. Wow. I'm still getting feedback.
Feedback. Whoa, really? Let me see.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Yeah.
Let me see. Is it better now? Is it better?
Hello.
Hello? Is it better?
Anyway, I'll just manage. Anyway, guys, if you want to try and fix, or maybe help, we are talking to. And I don't want us to go that way. I don't want us to go that way with it. So yeah, I think we can try with it. Okay, very good evening to all of the people who are joining us this channel, who are joining us this weekend. It's
Okay, but I can
an honor, it's an honor Oh, you can't hear me?
Oh, you okay? When you hear me, effort, I could hear you well, but when you put it on, I can't hear you well.
You ca Oh my, oh my. Okay, I just take them off. So that you think it's all the problem.
It's all the problem.
We call something out.
Call something
Like the earthquake falling out. So I guess have to tell the
So the topic is improving the orientation and perspective young people in Africa, West Africa have towards leadership. But before you begin, I just want to ask a question.
Sure.
Should there be a right orientation towards leadership? And in West Africa, the young people in the experience so far, do you think young people have really been truly understand the subject on leadership, especially in a political sector?
Oh, but why they ambush? But anyway, why they ambush? But I mean, of course, of course, there ought to be a certain level, of understanding as far as leadership is concerned. You don't just get up, and jump into it. We usually say that there are some people that are born natural leaders. There are some people who learn, to be leaders. There's some people who also, at the end of the day, become leaders by chance, by virtue of the fact that they are occupying a certain, position of influence, not solely political, position, but any position of influence whatsoever, could make you a leader. But irrespective of how you get into the space of leadership, at the end of the day, there is also the need for you to, get a certain level of orientation. There's also a need for you, to learn certain things and as well unlearn certain things, because once you get into leadership, there are do's and don'ts. And so irrespective of where you come from or irrespective of how you jump into that particular space, of course, there's that need for you to, get a better understanding, get a better appreciation of what, the whole subject of leadership is about. And so, of course, it's important that people, are walked through certain, orientations, as it were, in order to, become better at what they do as leaders. That's why, for example, there's one you want. For example, I'm an Obama Africa leader today. I'm an Obama Africa leader today because I've realized that in as much as I position myself as a young leader within the African continent, I also believe that there's a need for me to learn certain things that would help me, as it were, perfect leadership. That will put me on a certain track. And trust me, ever since, I got into that space, started the program, there's so many things that I'm learning today. Things that I used to do, things that I presently do, but I did not understand the things that underpinned some of these things. I did not, understand the theoretical basis of some of these things. I was just doing them, right? They came to me naturally. But now I've come to understand that these are actually traits that people pay money to learn, right, in school. So I'm now getting to understand the basis of a lot of things that I've done in the past and a lot of things that I presently do. And I'm learning many more new things that will help me become a better leader. And so irrespective of where it is, whether you're born a natural leader, whether you learn to become a leader, whether you become a leader by virtue of the position that you occupy, there's always the need for you to go through a certain level of orientation. There's always the need for you to learn, unlearn and relearn, sorry. And it's very normal. And it actually should be the norm. It should be what we should look forward to see, happening in our part of it.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much. Okay. So briefly, what can you talk about young people, the mindset young people have towards leadership in West Africa? And I think the dynamics of leadership in West Africa is way differ somehow with other European countries and then other Western world, and especially when it comes to how we serve people. Let's say in how we're offering services in organizations, how we're offering services in the political sector. You see, there are differences. What can you say about young people having to get into different leadership positions? What kind of mindset should they cultivate towards leadership?
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You're asking me a multiplicity of questions at a go. I'm just wondering how I'm going to be able to box it all up and answer. So one of the key things that I'm picking up from the question you're asking is that you're asking me what do I think about the mindset that young people have, as far as leadership. is concerned in this part of the world? That's basically the crux of the question that you're asking. Uh, hmm. Do you want me to go my usual? Or you want me to be too much romantic?
And I want this to actually come from your experience of knowledge so far, with the fact that you've sat with different leaders in other areas, and really want
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
All right, sure. So all right, sure. Because of the way that this part of our world, we in the long run end up management a certain kind of people that are very timid, that feel very intimidated, that are unable to really challenge the status quo and ask the relevant questions, and do the relevant things that are needed to be done to get things to change in the society that we find ourselves. And so usually whenever you get young people getting into positions of influence or positions of leadership, for most of them, they feel like it is an opportunity for them to, one, as it were, lord it over people, and feel very big and proud and pompous, and get people to serve them instead of them rather getting into that space to serve people. Because leadership, to me, and I mean, is the reality, leadership is service. It's supposed to be you getting into a position of influence. It's supposed to be you, sitting in a certain office. It's supposed to be you being in a certain position where you're supposed to serve people. You're supposed to solve people's problems, and not for you to want to be served. But clearly, what happens in our part of the world is that most people get into leadership positions and they feel that, well, it is a time for me to get people to serve me. It is a time for me to lord it over people. It is a time for me to, milk people and make back the money that I invested in my campaign and all of that. And for me, that's very problematic, and probably one of the main reasons why we are seeing the type of failed leadership that we are seeing in our part of the world. That is not to say that we do not have people who are doing amazing. There are so many young people who are doing great stuff as far as leadership is concerned. However, we still have a very long way to go because of the kind of orientation that lots of the young people in our part of the world have. And so clearly, when you look at it, people are looking at it from the point that, it's more about me just getting into that space and making back the money that I invested in my campaign. It's more about me now getting people that I can board over, people that I can get to, to do things for me and all of that. It's more about, getting people to serve me and being the boss. But instead, if you ask me, it should not be about all of these things. Rather, it should be about how can I be a leader even in the small corner of my room, okay? How can I be a leader even in the classroom that I find myself, or in the lecture theater that I find myself? How can I be a leader in the community that I find myself, where I'll usually sit with boys and maybe have conversations, or on the football pitch where I'll usually go and meet with my colleagues and play soccer? How can I be a leader in that space? And that would mean that you stepping or rising up to the task and taking responsibility, even if it has not been enshrined on you. Okay, and this does not mean that you're imposing yourself on people. It only means that you are willing to sacrifice yourself to service, to serve people within your inner circle, to serve people that you play football with. So that could mean that you making sure that you get to the pitch on time, organize the football, organize the jerseys and what have you that has got to be done to ensure that you guys can play football. That in its own, light is leadership. It could also mean that in the house that you find yourself, or if you're in the hostel with your colleagues as a student, it could mean that waking up and ensuring that the room is clean and everything is okay, your electricity is working, your taps are running, and everything is well sorted out. That is leadership in itself. You've demonstrated leadership by doing that. It could also mean that in a community that you find yourself, your gutters are probably choked, and whenever it rains, it floods. Okay? It could mean you stepping up or rising up to the task, organizing the community cleanup exercise, and say, look, actually, you know what? Let's get out there and let's clean the gutters. Because at the end of the day, we are the people that are going to suffer the brunt when things are not done right. So leadership does not necessarily mean that you've got to be in a position of influence. You don't have to be a DCE. You don't have to be a member of parliament. You don't have to be the president of an association. You don't have to be the captain of the football team. It does not matter what portfolio you occupy, what position you hold, okay? What matters most is the fact that you're willing to sacrifice yourself to serve people, irrespective of what position you occupy. And for me, that is the greatest form of leadership. It's one of the things I tell people is that you don't have to be in a position of high influence. You should be able to serve from anywhere that you find yourself, from any position that you find yourself, you should be able to demonstrate leadership. And once you're able to demonstrate leadership, irrespective of where you find yourself, you wouldn't have to talk about it. You wouldn't have to market yourself or sell yourself or anything. The people themselves would see it and they would recognize the fact that this person is demonstrating leadership. This person is doing A, B, C, D, and all of that. When I identified that in the community where I come from, I'm from East Goja municipality. I'm from Pembi, to be precise. I realized that there are so many challenges that lots of young women in the communities are faced with. And so you're seeing lots of teenage pregnancy, you're seeing some child marriages and all of these things. And you realize that the crux of the matter, the reason why all of these things are happening is because a lot of them are unemployed. Okay? They don't have a source of livelihood. They're not educated, A, B, C, D. So I decided that, look, you know what? I'm going to demonstrate leadership in my community by rising up to the task and ensuring that I give these young ladies a source of livelihood. I give them a source of economic empowerment so that they can save themselves from all of these challenges that they are faced with and all of the effects that come with it. I was not in a position of influence at the time. I was just a level 300 University of Ghana student. I did not occupy any political office whatsoever in my constituency. I was not the DCE. I was not the member of parliament. I was nothing. I was just an ordinary university student. But I saw the need, I saw the challenge, and I decided to rise up to the task and solve the challenge. I demonstrated leadership there and then. Okay? So it's about rising up to the task. It's about seeing the challenge, identifying it, galvanizing people, and influencing them to buy into this particular idea and go with you to solve it. When I saw the challenge, what did I do? I talked to my colleagues. I talked to my classmates. So the first group of people that I took to my community to run a free health screen were my classmates back in the university. So was I occupying a political position? No. Was I occupying any big position whatsoever? Nothing. I was just an ordinary university student, but I saw the need, I jumped in, and I solved it. That's how we demonstrate leadership in whatever corner it is that we find ourselves. So you do not have to be, that big boy or that big man or whatever. No. It doesn't matter where you are. And it doesn't even matter your age. It doesn't matter your age. And I tell people that mostly in any classroom that I find myself, I'm sure I'll probably be the youngest person in the class because I was one of those students who skipped a number of classes, right? So I'll probably be one of the youngest people in any class that I find myself. But at the end of the day, you realize that everyone keeps looking, back at you and using you as a reference point and all of that. And then you ask yourself, what could it possibly be? In my little corner, is just how I'm able to demonstrate leadership in those, small things. And it's usually in the small things. It's usually in the small things. So you do not have to occupy any, certain big position of influence. Let me tell you about, I don't know if you heard of David Nia Jai. He started Code 57. So you should read about Code 57. Yeah, great. And David, for those of you who are watching us this evening, David left Ghana at a very young age, ended up somewhere in the UK, right? And realized that, look, you know what? Young people in Ghana are losing hope. And somebody has got to give them that hope. And that hope is not going to come from the political leaders. And that hope is not coming from the religious leaders. And that hope is not coming from the traditional leaders. So what did he do? He decided to leave the UK and come to Ghana, even though he had left Ghana for several years, to come and start an organization with the main objective and the main hope of reorienting the minds of the young people, of giving hope to the young people of Ghana. And trust me, today, Code 57 is a big thing. They are churning out first class graduates at our universities. They are churning out SRC presidents. They are churning out SRC vice presidents. They are churning out amazing young people in this country to do amazing stuff. They are training leaders. But David was not a minister. He was not a member of parliament. He was just an ordinary person who saw a need and decided to step in and fill in the gap. And so all I'm just going to tell young people is that there's a certain perception that we hold that in order for you to be a leader, you need to occupy a position. No. The position may come, but trust me, people would respect you sometimes just because of the position. And after the position is gone, nobody's going to give a damn about you again. But what can you do to ensure that even after you have lost that position, people would still look up to you. People would still respect you. People would still want to come up to you and talk to you to be able to find solutions to their problems for them. That is leadership. And so leadership is not in the title. It is not in the position. It is in the things that you do as an individual, And before you'd be able to rise up to the task to serve a community as your leader, then you might as well serve yourself properly. You might as well demonstrate self-leadership. Because if you're unable to demonstrate leadership, personal leadership as an individual, then how dare you rise up and say you want to serve people? You'll be making a fool out of yourself. Because clearly all of the errors would show. You're not made for it, you're not cut for it, and you have decided not to learn it. So for me, this would be my introductory points if you ask me. Yeah.
I think that was more than an introductory point. It was more than that. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the section. This is because we want to be able to actually put a great point within a short period of time so that young people could go back.
Absolutely.
Listen to this over and over again. So we're going to go to the question and answer sections right now. And you're from Africa, and you're from West Africa,
Yep.
and you're from Ghana.
Yep.
And you understand what it feels like to feel the deficiency in the educational system in West Africa. And so we have a lot of young people who give excuses for the fact that, I'm unable to do this, I'm unable to do that because of this, because of that. What would you say about the glaring excuses and obvious excuses we have in West Africa not to be able to really, to meet up, rise above the challenges? What would you tell young people about these things? The realities of life that we experience, especially in West Africa, that there's so much things we don't have, so much grants we don't have access to, easily have access to so many things. What would you tell young people about them?
All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for that one again. Truth of the matter is that no cap. Yes, reality, once it dawns on you, it's crazy. Obviously, there's so many challenges, so many challenges that we are faced with in our part of the world. And usually the thing with questions like you have asked me is that I tried so much or so hard not to downplay whatever challenges it is that people may be having, right? Because there are different challenges that people, have, and there are different ways that we respond to the challenges that we face as individuals. And also there's a certain type of grace that certain people carry that certain other people do not carry. And so sometimes it puts you in a tight corner if you're talking about some of these things, because some people may feel that you're downplaying the challenges they face and all of that, right? Granted. But however, I don't think that life in its entirety is supposed to be without challenges. Take a typical look at my fingers right now. You see how uneven they are, even if I have this one, very uneven, all right? And so yes, it is supposed to be a bumpy road, all right? So sometimes you come all the way from down, then you rise to the top, you're all the way at the top, and then you start coming down again, and eventually you go up. That's how life is supposed to be. Now, trust me, there are some people who would get up someday, and from the day they are born to the day that they die, they've been in affluence, they've been in riches, and what have you. That's how they were created. That's how God made it. But listen, those people also have their challenges. It's just that their challenges are not your kind of challenges. So a very typical rich person will tell you that, well, when I was growing up, the challenges I faced was that, well, my driver would always come and pick me up late, or there was a day we closed from school and the car broke down. But that's your challenge, okay? And that's that. If I'll tell you, well, some of my colleagues were going on vacation to Europe, and I wanted to go to Europe, and my father said, no, you should go to America. And that's their challenge, and that's their own. Unlike some of us who would walk several kilometers to get to school, right? Unlike some of us who were, in private international schools, and when things, took a nosedive, our parents had to take us out of those schools and take us to public schools, right? But at the end of the day, I feel that it's about rising above all of the obstacles and all of the challenges that you're faced with. If you look at all of these things as problems, then you're going to stay wherever it is that you find yourself and not really see anything significant happen in your life. And so as an individual, one, it's about understanding the situation that you find yourself in the first place and appreciating the reality of who you are and say that, yes, indeed, this is who I am. This is where I find myself now. These are the challenges that I face now. Then the next question you need to ask yourself is that, okay, where was I before this point? And when you look back at where you were before the point that you presently are, have you seen any improvements in your life? Has anything changed significantly? If indeed something has changed significantly, then ask yourself, where am I headed? Where do I want to go to? Where am I going to? All right. And now when you ask yourself that particular question, and you say, okay, this is where I'm headed, then ask yourself, how do I get myself there? How do I rise above the challenges that I'm presently facing now to get myself to the point that I want to get to. And once you have come up with answers as to exactly how you'll be able to rise above the challenges to get yourself to the point that you're going to get to, trust me, you would find a way out. But you see, the moment you keep quiet and sit back and you're always mourning, you're always complaining, you're always, you're bothered about the challenges that you're faced with, you're bothered about the things that you cannot afford, the things that you cannot do, and A, B, C, D, then you will not go anywhere. So yes, I understand that, of course, in our part of the world, not just within West Africa, in our part of the world, now in Africa as a whole, there's so many challenges that we are faced with. Education is a problem, employment is a problem. List all of these things. But at the end of the day, if you ask me, Miracle, it's about being able to rise above the challenges and not just see them as problems. I say see them as challenges. Why? Because challenges are meant to be what? To be solved. Once you identify a challenge, the next thing is for you to be able to find a solution to the challenge. Is that not the case? So see them as challenges. Let me give you a typical example. And I'm still going to use my organization that I funded. Now, I founded this organization when I was in level 300 at the university. It was when I started the organization because I identified the problem and I decided to turn it around. Now, that became my source of employment. Until today, the NGO that I started is still my source of employment. Yes, I do other things on the side because I have decided to leverage on my God-given talents. I've decided to leverage on the skills that God has given me. And I'm multi-talented. I can do so many things. And by the grace of God, I'm able to do all of these things and do them well. So aside the fact that I'm running the nonprofit which I founded, as my source of employment, I'm also leveraging on the skill sets that God has given me. I write poetry for people and I'm paid. Okay? I write scripts for people and I'm paid. Okay? I write speeches for people, your politicians. I write speeches for them to deliver and I'm paid. Okay? I use my voice to record jingles and voiceovers and radio dramas and I'm paid for it. I dance and I'm paid. I act on stage and I'm paid. So I have decided to leverage on the things that God has blessed me with. Okay? To find employment for myself. And most of these things, I started doing them even when I was in school. I started landing my bed gigs and all of the things that I do when I was in school. So then the question you ask is that, why are people complaining? Okay, and when people do not know where you come from, some of them are forced to say that, for all you know, he's in a position of influence. He's from a good home. He has rich parents and all of that. But no, I'm not going to sit here on this session and try to tell people the background that I came from and how I grew up and how situations were for me, blah, blah, blah. But for people who know me and people who have followed my journey, okay, would be able to say that, indeed, this guy is a living testimony because he has been through it. He's gradually getting out of it, and you can see the growth. When you look at it, you can see the trajectory of growth. And so for me, it's never been in me to sit back and complain about the things that I go through. When I see that there's a challenge, the next thing I'm looking for is solution. And so if you ask people who know me, they'll tell you that I'm one of the people who does not complain. When we meet and we're discussing, I tell them, look, I don't want to discuss problems. I want to discuss solutions. How do we solve this problem? So whenever I'm broke, and I'm talking about a recent time now, whenever I sit back and I'm broke, I don't have money in my pocket or money in my account, trust me, I will find something to give me money in a day or 2 days. I would decide on what to do to give me money immediately to put in my pocket so I can do whatever it is that I want to do. So when I hear people make such excuses, then I find it worrying because, Miracle, there are people who had never seen a computer before. All right? The only time they saw a computer is when their teacher drew it on a board with a chalk, with chalk on the blackboard, drew the mouse, the keyboard, and everything for them to see. But these people have made it in life. The people who would, want to read, using the moonlight. It means that if there were days where the moon did not appear, they could not study. But these people rose above the challenges and they made it in life. And that is not to again downplay the challenges that people are facing. There are people who have genuine concerns, but we must always focus on the solutions and not the problems. Yes, the problems will forever be there. We can never solve the problems. Even in the developed world, there are people who have problems. I have traveled extensively by the grace of God, and I have seen that even on the streets of New York, you find people sleeping in the streets, right? And so there are challenges everywhere, but we need to be able to rise above the challenges. such that someday people can look back at us and say that, wow, amidst all of the challenges that he faced in his life, he was able to go A, B, C, D, rise above the challenges. Do not see them as problems. Do not see it as though they have come to stay and there's not. Look, even the Holy Quran tells us that Allah will not change the state of a people until they have attempted to change their own state. And so nobody is going to solve your problem for you if you do not get out there and make an attempt to solve it yourself. Even God himself has told us that I won't solve your problem if I don't see you putting in an effort to solve it. And the account will tell you that any piano. So once you identify the challenges and decide as an individual to start taking those steps to solve the challenges, trust me, you would rise above them. You would get people who come out and push you and support you to rise above those challenges. So people should complain. I feel that a lot of young people have become, a generation of people who complain. They're always complaining. And today this, tomorrow that, and today this, and the government has done A, the government has done B. People need to get it here that the people you are electing into office do not care about you, and they're not going to solve your problems until you rise above the challenges and decide to solve your problems for yourself. And so if you're talking about unemployment today in our country, and I can tell you once again that there are so many young people who are creating employment for themselves and for other people because they decided not to look at the challenges as problems, but as challenges. And challenges are meant to be solved. And they found solutions to them. So young people need to stop complaining. Young people need to stop talking and start doing, right? We need to stop talking and start doing. That is the only way we are going to solve our problems. The talk is too much. We are talking a lot. We need to stop talking. Let's start doing. And listen, there are people with so many bright ideas. Those ideas are going to remain ideas until you decide to act on them. Right? If you want to solve unemployment and you have wild ideas in your head, stop thinking about them as just ideas. Act on them. Because the moment you're thinking about it, there are several other millions of people thinking about the same thing. But what's going to distinguish you from them is the fact that you have decided to take a step. Trust me, sometimes I can sit in a meeting, I have a wild idea, I write it down, I call one or two friends, and actually, let's discuss this thing. We talk about it. The next day, you go online and realize someone has done it in another part of the world. Sometimes, even in the country that you find yourself in, somebody has already done it. So it means that while we are in our part of the world complaining every day, other people are doing, other people are acting, right? And we need to move beyond the ideation and the talking and start acting, start implementing, start doing it. If you don't and it fails, start again. You know the number of NGOs I started before I finally started this one and it's been able to succeed. It's 5 years now, 5 solid years. And it's not easy to run a non-profit for 5 years. But there are so many others that I started before this one. This one is succeeding. There's so many other businesses that I've started and they've collapsed. You start, they collapse, you start, they collapse, you start, they collapse. But you do not give up. You need to keep going. I've said so many things. 1, stop complaining. 2, leverage on your God-given talents. Leverage on the skills that God has given you and utilize them. Use them to feed yourself. 3, I've talked about the fact that we need to move beyond ideation and start implementing the things that we think about. You think about it, implement it. You think about it, implement it. I've talked about the fact that we need not to give up. You need to keep moving. You need to keep moving. If you do and it fails, do it again. If you do and it fails, do it. Try it another way again. That's how we get somewhere as young people. I feel that we complain a lot. Look, and I interact with people on a daily. I interact with people from all over the world. And the clear difference between us and our part of the world here in Africa and a lot of our peers, in the Western world is that they are always doing it. They are not complaining. If you say, okay, so this is the challenge we're likely to face, the person tells you, okay, so what do you think we can do about it? Then the next person, well, I think we can do A, B, C, D. And they are already coming up with possible solutions as to how to go about it. In our part of the world, the moment we start talking, oh, Charlie, these politicians, they worry you. Oh, Charlie, don't say this thing. If like we do also that. No, bro. We need to move beyond talking.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adams. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much for this section. It's really a powerful section, really a powerful section. And so we've come to the end of this section, but before we're going to let you go, so we'll summarize this in few words before we end the section. In few words, what do you want to tell young people out there, especially in Africa, the hope of leadership in Africa. A few words. What would you tell young people to do, or what in your experience about? What do you want to tell you?
I feel like you're always setting me up, man. So, you know, when I was hosting my radio show on Clouds FM, Talk of the Nation, for those who who listened to that particular show and the live sessions, I was always very hard on everybody. I didn't leave anyone out, right? I hit hard on everyone, whether the politician, whether the chiefs, the imams, the pastors, and everyone. But this evening, sorry, if you ask me, I'll tell you to a large extent that I think that young people in Africa are sometimes, part of the problem. I say that because when you come to my country, Ghana, and you look at the recent statistic that we have as far as the population is concerned, you realize that the youth make up over 70% of the population of the country. Over 70% of the population of the country. When you look at the African continent, you realize that young people make up 60% plus of the population of the continent. And what that means is that we have the power as young people to call the shots. Okay? What that means is that we as young people have the power to be the architect of the future that we want for ourselves. And a typical example is what happened in Nigeria, where you realize that for a first-time presidential candidate like Peter Obi was able to pull about 6 million votes in Nigeria. And for me, trust me, I'm proud of all of the 6 million people that voted for Peter Obi. So one thing I said to myself is that if every single young person in every part of the African continent decided consciously that they were going to elect people who had them at heart, decided consciously that they were going to listen to the message of the person and say, look, this is the person that we think, this is the person that we believe has us at heart, and we take the necessary steps to solve our problems, then let's go on out for that person and elect that person to get into office. Then trust me, we would be changing a lot about our continent. Because what it means is that in every single country, you're going to get young people challenging the status quo and changing the status quo. You look at Nigeria and realize that there are two major political parties that have been changing the baton every now and then, and nothing seems to be changing. You come to Ghana, and it's two major political parties that have been changing. It's either NDC or MPP, and nothing seems to be changing. And you get young people fueling these political parties. So imagine that young people decide something, look, we are sick and tired, we've had enough of all of you. We are going to change the trajectory. We are going to go for somebody else, and we are going to rally behind that person and vote for that person, because that person is young at heart, that person is young in the mind, that person understands the latest trends, that person understands what the challenges of young people are, and that person knows the solutions to the problems. Ask yourself that, what would happen if young people decide to do that? That is just one side of it on the political chain. Now also imagine that young people identify challenges in their communities. That does not require them to even put their monies in, okay? Because the money, they don't even have it in the first place. They're broke, they're unemployed, they're broke, they don't have personal shit. But identify challenges that require you to do things that do not need you to put money in it, okay? And rise up to it and start solving these challenges with your community. It could start with just weeding around. It could start with just, cleaning and distilling the gutters and taking out all of the filth and all of that. Imagine what would be happening in the communities that we have in our part of the world. Imagine that you decide to set up community gardens or community farms where you can feed yourself. Imagine what we'll be doing along those lines if young people decide consciously. That is another side of it. I've given you another side of it. The third side of it, that imagine that young people decide to empower young business owners. Me, okay? You see what I'm wearing? This kaftan I'm wearing, okay? I bought it from a young fashion designer, okay? A youth. The glasses I'm wearing, I walked into an eye clinic owned by a young doctor who employs young people to work with him. And I did my eye check, and I got my glasses, and I got a every single thing that I buy, every single transaction or every single service that I need to use. Once I'm able to identify a young person within my community, within my inner circle, or even my outer circle that is involved, that does that thing, I quickly want to patronize them. Why? Because the money stays within the circle of young people. Imagine that consciously as young people, we decide to empower young business owners. And so if you're a young person, buy from a young business owner. Buy from your friend, okay? Support them. And trust me, beyond buying, it doesn't take anything away from you to support young business owners. If you post their flyer on your social media, it's not going to take your money, okay? If you share their flyer with your friends on your WhatsApp status, on your Instagram, on your Twitter, on your Snapchat, it's not going to take anything away from you. So why don't we do it? And those are the ways we can empower young business owners. Sometimes you can just get up and choose to go and volunteer in your friend's company and say, look, you know what? I just want to volunteer in your company for a week or 2 weeks just to offer my service, just to help. It's not going to take anything away from you. You know, since last year up until now, every single week, I dedicate part of my time to volunteer to teach students at the University of Ghana. Nobody's paid me a peswa, okay? I get up in the morning, and interestingly, the class are very early in the morning. Last year, the class was at 7:30. I love my sleep. But at 7:30 every day, I make sure I'm in that class just to go and volunteer my time, all right? Nobody pays me a peswa to do that. I do that out of my free will, because I feel like as a young person, that is what I can also contribute. So yes, I get up and move my car. Nobody buys fuel for me. Nobody buys water or food or anything for me. And I go just to volunteer time to help teach a class. And that's what I feel that as a young person, I can contribute towards the younger generation. And nobody's paying me for it. Imagine that as young people, we all consciously do all of these things. Just imagine where we would be headed as a people. You see, one thing I've realized about us young people in this part of my world is that we do not like collaboration. We're in competition with each other. Everybody wants to be the boss. Everybody wants to be on top. Nobody wants to partner with another person. Nobody wants to collaborate with another person. Trust me, we will not go anywhere if we do not partner with each other. We won't go anywhere if we don't partner. If we don't come together and collaborate on projects, and collaborate in starting companies, and collaborate in starting organizations. And I'll tell you today that every single thing that I do, I collaborate with other people. The moment the idea hits my head, the next thing I'm doing is I'm imagining, who do I have in my contact list that I can do this with? And straight, I get on the phone call with the person, we text or chat to the person, and I tell the person, this is what I want to work on. I need you to come on board because these are your expertise. And I believe that if you come on board and we do A, B, C, D, we will be able to succeed. So what can we do as young people? We need to start partnering. We need to start collaborating. We need to start working together. We need to start seeing each other as bros. We are not in competition. It's not a race. Okay? The only people we are supposed to be competing with are the people who do not care about us. The people who do not care to solve the challenges and the problems that we are facing. So as young people, we must see ourselves as friends and not enemies. We must partner and work on things together. If you want to go alone, you won't get anywhere. Because there are times that you start and it gets very disappointing. Sometimes you lose steam and you need another person to be able to cushion you and push you and motivate you and inspire you. That's why we need partners. So different people come with their different knowledge and different expertise, and we work on things together. That is how we can get far as young people. And so as young people in Africa, we need to start partnering. I have so many things to say, but let me just give this final point, which is that we don't have to look for the solutions beyond our boundaries, okay? The solutions to our problems are not beyond our boundaries. The solutions to our problems are within our boundaries. The solutions are looking at us right in the face. Let me give you a typical example. For me, one of the things that has worked for me is agriculture. I grew up in a typical farming community, yes. My father, a farmer, yes. My family members, a lot of my uncles and grandfathers, typical farmers, yes. So what did I decide to do as a young people? Yes, I'm a university graduate. Yes, I have a master's. Yes, I have another master's, that I'm working on now. But I still farm. I still go to the farm and I get my hands dirty. A lot of young people today do not want to get into agriculture. A lot of young people today do not want to farm. But what I do tell you is that agriculture is the future of our continent. In fact, agriculture is the future of the world. And so as a young people, we must be willing and ready to get into that particular space. Of course, I do understand that there are challenges. But as I said, challenges are meant to be overcome. So start. 2, 3 people come together and decided you want to cultivate 5 acres together. Work on it. Whatever small savings you have, put it together. Cultivate the 5 acre. Make sure that you harvest, you get a good harvest. After that, multiply it. After that, multiply it. After that, multiply it. And imagine where you'd be headed as young people. Agriculture is the future. And when you take a typical look or a critical look at the agricultural value chain, it is wide. Maybe you don't want to farm, but you can be an aggregator. Maybe you don't want to farm. You can be a tractor operator. Maybe you don't want to farm. You can be a combined harvester operator. Maybe you don't want to farm. You can be on the processing side of the value chain. So it's a wide value chain, and there's enough space for every single young person in our continent. And we need to jump into that particular space and make good use of it, because that is the future. So young people need to run away, from that shyness and that stigma that they are tied to agri, and make it look like agri is only for the rural folks. Hello, it is not for the rural folks. It is for everybody, and everybody should be able to jump in. Look, there's so many rich people that we look up to in this world today who are farmers. They farm. They are rich because they have huge farms, and that's how they make their money. So we need to move beyond the stigma we are tied to agri, and not just agri. We need to move beyond the stigma that we are tied to our hustle. I tell young people every day that be proud of your hustle. Whatever it is that you do, genuinely and honestly, that puts food on your table, that puts money in your pocket, you ought to be proud of it, and you ought to appreciate it. And do not allow anybody laugh at you. Do not allow any stigma whatsoever to drive you or move you away from doing that thing. Because the people that are going to laugh at you, because the people that are going to make fun of you, because the people that are going to stigmatize you would not give you money. Those people would not put food on your table. So anything that you do genuinely, honestly, that puts money in your pocket and puts food on your table, you've got to be proud of it, and you've got to appreciate it and do it with all of your heart, and forget the stigma that is going to come with. Because if you stop doing it because of what other people are saying, trust me, a combi queen. And that's what I tell people every day that, look, I don't have time. I don't have time to take second stairs and backing dogs. Okay? People who stigmatize, people who tease, people who call me names, I call them backing dogs. Okay? And when I'm on the road and I'm heading somewhere and there's somebody who is and there are dogs barking behind me, I don't have time to look back at them. There's somewhere, there's a vision, there's a goal, there's somewhere that we're supposed to get to, that I'm focused on, that I go to. So people need to grow, beyond some of these things.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for this section. Honestly grateful, and I'm going to just join it now. Then you would go back to watch this section, and I think, yeah. So I want to say thank you, Mr. Adams, and everyone who's joined us today. Thank you so much. So you could go back to our YouTube channel or still watch it again on Instagram Live. Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to let Mr. Adams go right now, and then thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.